hours.
The Brady Farkas Show is produced and funded by WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group. We welcome listener feedback. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The energy. So the barber trims my beard all nice, like an artist. Now, I didn't tell him to do that. I wanted the beard gone. So then I went home and shaved it off completely after I was done. I felt horrible.
The passion.
Rafael Devers is the biggest contract in franchise history. He needs to be a leader for this Red Sox team.
The opinions on all your favorite teams.
Are the Patriots close to playoff contention? Yes. Are they close to Super Bowl contention? Hell no.
This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
What's up, everybody? Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. A full show, all 90 minutes up until 7 o'clock here on DEV. And boy, as usual, do we have a lot to get to. We continue getting ready for the NCAA tournament as we talk with our first look at a Marquette insider today. We're going to talk with Gabe Neitzel. Gabe Neitzel is a part of the Marquette radio broadcast team at ESPN Wisconsin. So he'll talk little UVM and Marquette hoops with us at 5:45. We'll talk at 6:30 or so with Morgan Valley, the Vermont native, who's about to be inducted into the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame. She's on the coaching staff of the Uconn women as they get ready for UVM as well. And of course, there's NFL free agency and Aaron Rodgers' big declaration as well. The show is brought to you by Fecto Homes, and you can get in on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line at 802-585-3026. It's your locally owned Napa stores in Waterbury and in Morrisville.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show are brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center with locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. So the Patriots have made a move, and they have made a move to address their wide receiver room. The Patriots have signed Juju Smith-Schuster, formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs. He won a Super Bowl this year with Kansas City. They lose Jacoby Myers yesterday. They get Juju Smith-Schuster today. It's a 3-year, $33 million deal. If that sounds familiar, it is because that is the exact same deal that Myers got from Vegas. And let me just say this. This is, as is usual, there are many, many layers to a story. On its surface, I like the signing of Juju Smith-Schuster. The Patriots have multiple holes in the wide receiver room. They lose Myers. There was another hole there yesterday. They have now plugged one of those holes. I like that. They got an NFL caliber talent to fill that hole. Juju Smith-Schuster, to me, is a good, solid number 2 receiver. So if you're going to lose Jacoby Myers, I like that they have replaced him less than 24 hours later. Juju had a good year relatively for Kansas City last year. He had 78 catches. He had 933 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. So he didn't get 1,000 yards, but he had nearly 80 catches. He would have clearly been the most productive receiver on the Patriots. So if you're going to lose Myers, filling it with Juju is something I'm generally happy about. What I'll also say is this. I don't know that Juju is a massive upgrade over Jacoby Myers. So we're talking about the Patriots offense needing to get a lot better in 2023. I don't think that Juju is a massive upgrade. Now, did he have more catches than Myers? Yes. Did he have more yards than Myers? Yes. He also had Andy Reid as a play caller and Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, 2 things he's not going to have in Foxborough. When you take away Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and give him Bill O'Brien, who we're decently high on, and Mac Jones and the rest of the Patriots offense, he very well may end up having reduced production and looking closer to Jacoby Myers. So I'm not sure that Juju is a massive upgrade. He has some better speed than Myers. He's a guy with more yards after a catch than Myers. So there's an element of explosiveness to Juju that's not there with Jacoby, but I'm not sure that Juju is just like this massive upgrade over him. I also think if you were giving me the choice, I'd still rather have Jacoby Myers than Juju Smith-Schuster. It's not that I don't like Juju. Now, he has some immaturities in his life, right? The TikTok stuff, the big too much into TikTok dances with Pittsburgh, talking smack after the Super Bowl at James Bradbury with the Valentine's Day thing. So there's some immaturities with Juju, but that's not why I'd rather have Myers. At the end of the day, I'd rather have a guy who I've built, who has been in my system, who has been in my program, who knows my locker room, and that's what Jacoby Myers is. Instead, you go out and bring in another outsider who will probably take time to learn the playbook, who will take time to develop chemistry with Mac Jones, who doesn't know Bill Belichick, and it's just a learning process. How many times have we seen that over the last several years where a guy comes in and it just takes him a while to get going? Jacoby Myers doesn't need that. Jacoby Myers would have been here and could hit the ground running. So Juju is a nice replacement for Jacoby Myers, but I'm not sure he's exponentially better. And I think I'd still rather have Jacoby Myers. Now, I'm partial because I just like Myers so much, but already knowing the locker room, already being a leader in that locker room, I do think that that is valuable. And if you're telling me that we have very comparable players, but one guy knows the facility, knows the system, and knows the quarterback, I'm going to tend to lean towards that guy. I'm going to tend to lean towards that guy. That's just reality. And then there's just this question that I have. 3 years, $33 million is the exact same deal that Myers got. Why wouldn't the Patriots pay it? The Patriots were clearly willing to give a receiver 3 years and $33 million. They were clearly willing to give a receiver $11 million a year. Why were they not willing to give that to Jacoby Myers? Do the Patriots not believe in Myers? Do the Patriots not think that Myers is any good? Do the Patriots think that Juju is exponentially better than him? I don't know, but Tom Curran of NBC Sports Boston asked a pretty good question last night.
The Patriots seem to create value with players, say David Andrews or J.C. Jackson or Malcolm Butler or Jacoby Myers. They make them valuable. And then when it comes time to pay them, they don't want to do that, which I get, because sometimes J.C. Jackson is too much. But then they go out there into the great wilderness and they bag a Jonnu or a Nelson and they bring them back on the top of their car and say, look what we got. And it ends up not working out.
You know, you create value for a guy like Jacoby Myers, and then you don't reward him, but you go out and reward somebody on the outside that we're not sure is much better than him, if at all. Juju Smith-Schuster has some traits that are better than Jacoby Myers, but I don't know that he's that much better than him. And for the same money, I'd rather go with the familiar. And I like that Jacoby Myers has been pretty healthy for the majority of his career. And Juju Smith-Schuster, there are questions about his health. There are questions about his durability. I mean, he played 5 games in 2021 for Pittsburgh. He's been relatively healthy every other year. I will give him that. So maybe I'm overstating his injury concerns. But 2021, he was out most of the season. He only played in a third of it. But Myers is a guy who's willing to play, willing to battle, and is pretty much always available. Now, the text line is going off, 802-585-3026. Joe says it makes me mad that they, for the same money, wouldn't bring back Myers. What the hell are they doing? He says Myers is a team guy, a player you want on your team. Juju isn't a good locker room guy. You know, I don't know that about Juju Smith-Schuster. I haven't done enough character background check on Juju. I do know that he wore his welcome out in Pittsburgh, right? The whole thing about when Antonio Brown left and Juju Smith-Schuster was really interested in his TikTok channel. He's making dances, and how focused is he on football? He wore out his welcome in Pittsburgh. I am hoping that that was more of a immaturity that has since been rectified. Now, he ends up going to Kansas City last year, has proximity to Mahomes, wins the Super Bowl. Maybe he has been recommitted to winning, and he will bring that with him to the Patriots. I hope that is the case. Travis says Juju doesn't blow the top off a defense like the Patriots need. That's true. Okay, that's true. And that's why today I am happy-ish, but not fully happy. I want to know what the Patriots' intentions are from this point forward. The Patriots still don't have a number one. Juju Smith-Schuster is not a number one. If you're just replacing Jacoby Myers with Juju Smith-Schuster and calling it a day, you haven't done enough. The Pats need a number one. Look, the Pats right now have a lot of 2s and 3s, and you can win with 2s and 3s, but you're going to need a 1 still, and the Patriots don't have a 1. Devontae Parker is a 2. Juju Smith-Schuster should be a 2. Tyquan Thornton, we don't know what he is yet, but he's certainly not a 1. Kendrick Bourne is a 2 or a 3. The Patriots have, as they've had for the last couple of years, they have some good receivers, but they don't have anybody that you fear. You didn't fear Jacoby Myers, and that's why I advocated for going out and getting a big play guy and letting Myers be my 2 or 3. Now we just got Juju as a 2 or 3. The same problems for the Patriots persist. You need a game breaker. We saw last year, A.J. Brown traded. Game breakers are available on the trade market. You can get a game breaker in the draft at number 14. You can get a game breaker in the second round. That's where they took Thornton last year. Maybe he'll become that guy, but right now, the questions for the Patriots are still there. Right? I look at the Patriots, and by adding Juju Smith-Schuster, they are better than they were yesterday when they lost Jacoby Myers. But the Patriots offense is still much worse than it was even when the season ended. Right? The Patriots are going to lose Damian Harris in free agency. The Patriots have traded Jonnu Smith, and the Patriots have lost Jacoby Myers, and all they have done is bring in Juju Smith-Schuster. So they are still worse overall than they were at the end of the season when they weren't particularly good. They still need a game breaker. Now, Texter says, get Jerry Jeudy. Now, the Broncos are listening to offers on Jerry Jeudy, and it's reportedly a first-round pick. I have the 14th pick in the draft. I would probably do that if I were the Patriots, but I'd have to give him a big contract. And you know what? I'd probably do that too. That's the kind of game breaker the Patriots need. Then the question becomes, if you get the game breaker, will the Patriots actually utilize them as a game breaker? But the time now for being frugal and the time for being diligent and smart, that time has passed. You've got to go out now and take swings. Teams are taking swings. Tyreek Hill got traded last year. Stephon Diggs got traded a few years ago. A.J. Brown got traded. Teams are absolutely now taking shots, and you got to be one of them, because right now you're getting passed by. Right? The Patriots are getting passed by. Juju Smith-Schuster keeps your head above water a little bit, but by and large, you are getting passed by. Texter says, how do the Pats keep up morale if they're going to keep doing these deals? Well, I think the locker room looks at it like, okay, at least we got Juju. But I think the locker room is also probably ticked like, Jacoby's a guy that we built and cultivated here, and you won't pay him. Why? But you'll bring it in an outsider. I think Patriots players are like, okay, at least we're, on a decent skill level as a team, but they're kind of being wondering, like, why are guys that do good things here not valued? I think that's a fair question. If I'm in the locker room, I'm like, all right, we got better today, but doesn't help me sleep at night knowing that the team doesn't value its own. As for Aaron Rodgers says that he wants to play for the New York Jets. He says it is his intention to play for the New York Jets. There are some trade compensation stuff that are holding up that deal. But if and when Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, this is my fear. The Patriots are going to be the last place team in the AFC East. The Patriots are one of the worst teams in the AFC conference. And the Patriots also just, 25% of their wins last year came against the Jets, and now those get harder to get. When Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, I think the Patriots now will have a hard time finishing over 500. They didn't finish over 500 this year when the Jets ended up not being very good. If Aaron Rodgers goes there, Patriots will have a very hard time finishing over 500 next year. Juju Smith-Schuster helps you stay afloat, but it doesn't do a whole lot to make your offense much better. It's better than it was yesterday. It's not better than it was at the end of the season. We know how bad it was at the end of the season, right? Look at the end of the season. Jacoby Myers, Damian Harris, Jonnu Smith, and Matt Patricia. You look now, Bill O'Brien and Juju Smith-Schuster. I still think the end of the season Patriots group is better than the group they have right now. Just getting Bill O'Brien and Juju Smith-Schuster doesn't do enough for this team. There's still too many holes and too many deficiencies. It is the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes, WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. All right, I want to transition over back to our coverage of college basketball. We spent a lot of time the last couple of days focusing on UVM and what they can do against Marquette coming up on the round one game Friday at 2:45. Now let's focus on the Golden Eagles. Joining us now is Marquette radio personality and ESPN Wisconsin radio host. It's Gabe Neitzel. Gabe, thank you for being with us. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I can't wait for Friday. Like, there's just a palpable excitement about Marquette. They haven't won a tournament game in a decade. And, no offense to the fine folks out there in Vermont, but there's a lot of people who thinks that streak will come to an end on Friday.
People think Marquette can run to the Final Four, and I've heard a lot in the last couple of days about this chip on Marquette's shoulder. How motivated are they? How disrespected do they feel?
It's tougher to play the disrespect card, but it started back in the preseason. And look, nobody knew what this team was going to be. They lost Daryl Morsell, who was a graduate transfer in from Maryland, who was their second leading scorer. Justin Lewis decided to make the jump from college to the NBA and has had limited success in the NBA. But they lost their top two players from a tournament team a year ago in Shaka Smart's first year. So they were picked to finish 9th in the Big East. And that's, everyone was like, oh, wow, can't believe that. Shock had, he had a pretty good season last year. And it was Tyler Kolek, when asked about that, said, hey, what do you think about your team picked to finish 9th? And he said, well, use the expletive, them. And that's kind of been the attitude of this team going forward. And now it's harder to use that disrespect card, considering that Tyler Kolek is now the Big East Conference Player of the Year. Shaka Smart is the Coach of the Year. They won the Big East regular season by 2 games. They won the Big East tournament and got that number 2 overall seed. So I think it's really tough to play that disrespect card at this point. But I think that they still feel like they have so much more to play for, so much to be motivated for, to become one of those special teams in Marquette history, which is some of the motivation that Shaka Smart has used as well.
Kolek, one of the best players in the country. We've heard about him. Jones in the backcourt, an excellent point guard and who can really shoot it as well. Is the backcourt the strength of this team?
Yeah, absolutely, because they have so many interchangeable parts. What's amazing about this team is their ability to score points in the paint despite not really having a true center. Oso Ighodaro is a talented center. He's a great passer, second best passer on the team behind Tyler Kolek. But at 6'9", again, he's a little more undersized. He can still get to the rim, but they have guys who get crafty around the rim. You mentioned Kolek. Cam Jones can get there. You have David Joplin, who comes in off the bench, can finish around the rim as well. And that is certainly the strength of this team, Omax Prosper. So because they have all these interchangeable parts, they feel that they can do some of the traditional Shaka Smart stuff that you've seen. They put on a full court pressure at time. They still try to get 32 deflections a game, try to jump passing lanes and create turnovers that way, which is something they've had a lot of success with. So yeah, certainly the backcourt and having the ability to be able to switch defensively, all those different things is what makes this team pretty special this year.
Talk to me a little bit about how they can play down low. You mentioned not having a traditional center, but that's really one of UVM's biggest bugaboos as well, is that they're going to play 6'6" and 6'8" guys, but they're all really perimeter players kind of forced to play down low. So rebounding can be a problem for UVM. Getting pummeled down low can be a problem, but it doesn't sound like that's really Marquette's game.
No, and that's honestly some of the issues they've had in terms of the last 2 years because of that lack of size. Rebounding has been an issue where they give up a lot of offensive rebounds. So where they make up for that is kind of those turnovers that I mentioned. I mean, they force 16, 17 turnovers a game, opponents averaging, 23% of their opponents' turnover or possessions end in turnovers. So they try to make up for those, second chance opportunities that they've given up to some of the bigger teams like a Uconn, like a Providence in the Big East, and use those turnovers to then create chances for themselves. But again, that's not to say that this team doesn't attack the rim because they'll play out, especially when they bring Ben Golden off the bench. He's their tallest player, freshman out of New Zealand, but he can also shoot from the outside. So they're looking for driving lanes to attack, and that's how they really get to the basket and get into the paint and get crafty around the rim. Sure, they'll still, post up Oso Iguodaro, so he'll still try to back you down and try little lefty and righty, push shots, little hook shots in the lane. But that's not something they typically do where they just dump it down to Oso and let him go to work. They want to start from the perimeter and attack downhill to get to the rim.
We know that UVM is a underdog on the seed line. We know they're an underdog on the betting line, but we also know that upsets do happen. We saw a 15 seed last year in St. Peter's go all the way to the Elite Eight. So what is the weakness that Marquette has that could bite them? If they're going to be upset, what is going to be the reason?
I would say if their three-point shooting goes cold, but again, they don't rely as much on the three-point shooting. When they hits those shots, that's when special things can happen, like when they beat Baylor by 20-plus points earlier this year, or go on those extended runs when Cam Jones, David Joplin start knocking down those threes. And again, the other thing is if the other team takes care of the basketball, which has been an issue for those teams. I mean, I think everybody turns it over against Marquette, but if Vermont keeps their turnovers down and they're able to crash the offensive glass and be able to out-possession Marquette that way, that's to me the anatomy of an upset for Vermont. If you can get those offensive rebounds, because Marquette, when they go into that 1-2, 1-1 diamond press, whether it's full court, three-quarter, or sometimes they'll even do it in a half court, that leaves you susceptible on the back end. Sometimes they'll drop back into a 3-2, not a 2-3, a 3-2 zone because of their lack of size. They really try to put pressure on the outside. That leaves them susceptible underneath. So if Vermont can just start to accumulate a lot of offensive rebounds and limit their own turnovers, get more possessions, that's the anatomy of an upset to me for the Catamounts.
Gabe Neitzel here from ESPN Wisconsin with us here on the Marquette radio team as well as we get ready for UVM and Marquette Friday at 2:45. He's here with us on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. I wonder how aggressive Marquette is defensively, because I've always thought in these matchups that the higher seeded team should come out and blitz the hell out of the lower seeded team and try to get up 12-2 and then just kind of coast from there. So often we see these games end up with the higher seeded team being timid, and that's why they're sweating it out at the end. Is Marquette a team that will come out and try to overwhelm UVM early, or are they content to play in the half court?
No, they'll come out and they'll put the pressure on, without a doubt. That's what makes Marquette, to me, a tough matchup, even as the tournament goes on, is the number of different things they can do defensively. Yes, offensively, they have a lot of talent, and over at KenPom.com, they've been a top 5 efficient offense all year long in the country. And their defense hasn't been, usually when you think Shaka Smart, it goes back to his VCU days. You think, oh, Shaka Smart defense, that's what they do. And the defense is fine. It's mid-60s in terms of efficiency over at KenPom.com. But again, the thing they do is force turnovers. They're going to be aggressive. They'll throw that half-court trap at you. And if you show you can't handle it, they'll continue to come after you. They'll still put it out there if teams break it and get some buckets on the back end easy. They'll still show it every once in a while just to make you think, or they'll go to a man-to-man full-court pressure, or again, drop back into that 3-2 zone. But this is a team, because one of the main things that they track are those deflections. They go for 32 deflections a game. That's something that Shaka Smart has always kept as a goal, no matter where he's been. He wants to have those 32 deflections. So the only way to get that, you can't just be passive. You can't just sit back and go, okay, we're going to stay in front of our guys. No, you're going to have to be aggressive and jump passing lanes, get those, get the length that they have and get into those passing lanes to cause those deflections. And they're certainly going to force the issue defensively. That's just what Marquette does. If they get burned on the back end with a layup, they don't care. They're still going to come after you, and they're still going to make you uncomfortable on the perimeter. So they've got a number of different defenses that they're comfortable throwing out there. And I would be personally very surprised if you do not see that diamond press right away to start the game on Friday afternoon.
Is there anything about UVM that scares you, or frankly, are you looking so far past UVM you haven't even looked?
Haven't really looked, because this Marquette team is honestly, after the run that they've been on, I think they've lost once, since the middle of December, or excuse me, middle of January. They've been on a pretty good run here, with their only loss being to Uconn in conference over the last, month and a half, 2 months. And that was a game where Uconn shot 53% from three. Like, they just came out firing up there at the Mohegan Sun Center that they have. And Marquette just got their doors blown off because of how many threes and how often they were going in for Uconn. This is a type of team where if they focus on what they do, with what they have offensively, with Tyler Kolek and as efficient as he can be, one of the best point guards in the country, best assist to turnover ratio, second in assists. If they can play their game offensively and get those 32 deflections, I believe in this Marquette team. That's why there's so much excitement around this team. The last time they won a tournament game, they made a run to the Elite Eight. And I think they have a similar type of team where they've shown, based on their non-conference schedule and based on the way they played in the Big East, especially against those really good opponents, those teams that ended up ranked in the Big East in the AP and coaches poll at the end of the year, they've shown they can play with anybody in the country and beat anyone in the country, which is what everybody has, which has everyone excited here in Milwaukee.
Well, since you haven't done the research because you feel it unnecessary, let me tell you a little bit about the Catamounts.
And Brady, it's also like a part of it. My bandwidth has been so focused on Aaron Rodgers, here in the state of Wisconsin. Tournament hasn't started yet. I haven't had to worry about Vermont in that game. That's not till Friday. We're living day to day with whatever Aaron Rodgers may or may not be.
Well, I completely understand that. I live day to day with Patriots frustration, so I certainly get the NFL running your life as well. But let me tell you this. UVM, what works for them is that they are number one in the country in not turning the ball over. So they are the best in the country at not giving it away. So I do think they'll get possessions. What also is good for them is this coaching staff has been to the tournament a bunch of times in the last few years. They've played Florida State. They've played Arkansas. They've played Purdue. They've played all of them to within 10 points. They were within 4 from Arkansas last year. So the coaching staff knows what they're doing. It's also a veteran-laden team for the Catamounts. It's going to start 4 grad transfers in the, so it's an older team with experience. What the negative is that what you said about 5 minutes ago scares me, because UVM has a very hard time playing against defenses that have interchangeable switching pieces, because UVM is going to start 2 guys that are not 3-point shooters. So basically they end up with only 3 guys that are threats from deep. And if you just keep switching everybody, it becomes very, very hard to get those 3 guys shots from the perimeter. I would say if UVM is going to win this game, they're going to have to hit 10 plus threes, and that sounds like it's going to be difficult to do against a defense that plays this way. There's your quick scouting report.
Yeah, Marquette's not afraid to. I mean, even if it's a smaller guy, like if Oso Ighodaro comes out to hedge on a pick and roll and ends up having to switch, they're okay with Cam Jones, who's a smaller defender, or Tyler Kolek going underneath, and the other defenders around are aware of that. So they'll just try to front, slide in another defender behind that until they can figure out a way to get one of their bigger defenders to switch back on to the big. They are unafraid to play any style of defense.
Gabe Neitzel over at ESPN in Wisconsin. Gabe, man, we appreciate it. Enjoy the game on Friday, and maybe we'll catch up closer to football season.
Yeah, sounds good, man. You enjoy the game as well. Best time of the year. Can't wait for some college hoops Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, I can't wait for it as well. And by the way, we are going to have college hoops on tomorrow night and Friday night. So it's not going to impact any of our daytime programming, but at night tomorrow at 7:00 and then same time on Friday, we will have college basketball coverage. So I'm looking forward to having that on our airwaves as well. And I am looking forward to the UVM game. There's a lot of good stuff in there that Gabe Neitzel said, a lot of stuff to digest. There is some stuff I think that plays well for the Catamounts, and there's some stuff that doesn't play so well. I'm going to have the crew kind of break down the interview or cut up the interview while we're at the commercial break here and CBS News is playing, because I think there are some things there that we can talk about and discuss. And if UVM is going to win, it's very clear to me it's going to be on the shoulders of one player, Dylan Penn. If UVM is going to win, if they're going to pull a massive upset, Dylan Penn is going to be the reason why. That's very evident to me. And we'll talk about that in the next hour as well. But what we'll do is we'll step aside, we'll get the national news update from CBS News. Then we will come back and we'll break down Gabe Neitzel's interview, talk about some of his takeaways on Marquette and UVM. And then I'll tell you why Dylan Penn, I think, is the guy that's going to have to carry the Cats on Friday. It is the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes here on WDEV.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. a teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is WDEV, Vermont's news station, owned and operated by the Radio Vermont Group. From the top of Sugarbush, 96.1 FM, WDEV Warren and Waitsfield, 96.5 W243 Barrie, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, along with our founding station, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury Montpelier, streaming at WDEVradio.com. 91 years of serving Vermont, the friendly pioneer, WDEV.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Steel.
I'm Stacey Lynn in Washington. Russia says it wants to try to retrieve the debris from the U.S. drone that crashed down into the Black Sea yesterday. Top military officials say it went down in 4,000 to 5,000 feet of water, and there's likely not much left to recover. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke with his Russian counterpart about the collision.
I think it's really key that we're able to pick up the phone and engage each other. And I think that will help to prevent miscalculation going forward.
On Capitol Hill, the FAA held a safety summit today amid the recent string of close calls on airport runways. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg stressed the U.S. aviation system is the safest in the world.
That's working well. That we need to remember and continue, maintain and reinforce. And at the same time, what are the new steps that need to be taken?
Wall Street with some big bank anxiety today after one of the largest banks in Europe saw its stock take a plunge. Here's CBS business analyst Jill Schlesinger.
Credit Suisse has been a problem child in the global banking system, but the reality is this is a huge bank, and the 25% drop in the share price is raising concerns that the overall banking system globally is coming under pressure.
A judge in Texas will decide if an abortion pill will be pulled from the market.
The lawsuit filed by anti-abortion groups is asking for an immediate order that would revoke or suspend the drug's FDA approval. More than 20 years ago, the FDA gave mifepristone the green light in combination with a second pill as a safe and effective method to induce a medicated abortion.
CBS's Michael George. A federal manhunt is underway for former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan's former chief of staff. Roy McGrath failed to appear in court for his wire fraud and embezzlement trial. Correspondent Scott McFarlane.
Multiple sources are telling us if and when Roy McGrath is captured by the U.S. Marshals and FBI, he will most certainly will be held in pretrial detention until this trial takes place. He clearly has shown himself to be a flight risk.
March Madness is here. CBS Sports host Adam Zucker on what he thinks may be the bracket of death this year.
I think the West is overloaded. I think Kansas got a pretty tough draw to try to repeat as national champs, not only losing out on playing for a spot in Kansas City, but some of the teams that they're lined up to face down the stretch.
And you know, tournament time means a whole lot of slacking at work. Studies have estimated companies lose $2 billion in lost productivity. Markets closed lower on Wall Street today. The Dow down 281 points. This is CBS News.
Nobody should have to pay for one-size-fits-all insurance coverage. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Hi, I'm Yvonne from VSECU, a credit union for everybody in Vermont. CDs, MMAs, IRAs. It can be hard to know what's what and which savings is best for you. So here's a quick rundown. CD. It's a certificate of deposit. Great option if you don't need immediate access to your savings because you're parking your money for a certain period of time in exchange for a higher fixed rate of return. MMA, a money market account. It usually pays a higher rate than a savings account with a limited number of monthly transactions, and typically it's used for larger saving amounts. IRAs, individual retirement accounts. They offer great tax benefits while saving for your retirement. Great option if your employer doesn't offer you a retirement plan. At VSECU, we have all of these saving options. Learn more at vsecu.com/save. Make change simply by banking with VSECU.
Federally insured by the NCUA. Are you a bill splitter?
I put my card down.
Want to put it on my card or your?
A new one poll for Fogo de Chão finds a third of Americans don't think the bill should be split evenly if meals don't cost the same amount. 48% say someone's tried to snatch food from them. The same number say they've done it themselves. 7 in 10 admit they say yes to giving others a bite only because they don't know how to say no. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
St. Patrick's Day is Friday, and while you may be thinking about how many green beers you'll down to go with that heaping plate of corned beef, many Catholics who are abstaining from eating meat on Fridays during Lent are in a predicament. Can they get a one-day pass? According to the National Catholic Register, there are 105 Catholic dioceses which have given an official okay for their parishioners to enjoy the meat on St. Patrick's Day, as long as they skip it another day of the week, go to Mass, or do some charity work in penance. Stacey Lynn, CBS News.
Your chance to be part of the show is on the text line at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show, right here on WDEV, brought to you by Fecto Homes and always streaming at WDEVradio.com. Morgan Valley going to stop by at about 6:30-ish or so. She is a Vermont native, about to go into the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame. She's also a former women's basketball player at UConn and on the UConn coaching staff now as they get ready for the UVM women. I want to talk about the Patriots and some of their defensive moves as well at some point today, as the Patriots have brought back a number of pieces on defense in addition to signing Juju Smith-Schuster on offense. I want to thank Gabe Neitzel for coming on from ESPN in Milwaukee there, talking about Marquette as we get ready for the Catamount men in Marquette. So if you are a UVM fan and you just listen to Gabe Neitzel, there is good and there is bad in what you heard. Let's start with the good. Neitzel says that Marquette is not particularly big. This is a team that has long wing players, which is very tough to deal with also, but it's not a team full of 6'10 players and 7-footers. Take solace in that somewhere, UVM fans. When the Catamounts played Purdue in 2017, they had to deal with a big body in Caleb Swanigan, who was a force down low and eventually went to the NBA. When UVM had to play Florida State in the tournament a few years ago, they were humongous. I think they had multiple 7-footers, definitely one that was close to 7 foot. Marquette doesn't have that. And that's important. UVM does not have a lot of size. Robin Duncan is a guy playing center who has played guard his entire life. It would be hard for him at 6'6" to go matching up with 6'10" or 7 foot. The other big guys that UVM has, they are inexperienced. Nick Fiorillo, inexperienced, right? Has missed a lot of the season. I don't know that I want him up against 6'10" or 7 foot. You don't have to deal with that. Iliri Iofalia, a guy, same thing, inexperienced. Matt Veretto hadn't played basketball in 3 years, and as great as he's been, I don't know that I want him working with 7-footers down low. So if that were the case, I'd be worried about UVM rebounding wise, foul trouble, etc. So the fact that Marquette isn't particularly big, you have to be able to find some benefit in that, right? So if you're looking for positives in what Gabe Neitzel had to say, that's got to be one you can draw from. Marquette is not particularly big. Neitzel also talked with us about the defense of Marquette.
No, and that's honestly some of the issues they've had in terms of the last 2 years, because that lack of size. Rebounding has been an issue where they give up a lot of offensive rebounds. So where they make up for that is kind of those turnovers that I mentioned. I mean, they force 16, 17 turnovers a game, opponents averaging, 23% of their opponents' turnover or possessions end in turnovers. So they try to make up for those, second chance opportunities that they've given up to some of the bigger teams like a UConn, like a Providence in the Big East, and use those turnovers to then create chances for themselves.
So Neitzel says the defense for Marquette is aggressive. Marquette is predicated on forcing you into turnovers. Well, what did we hear yesterday from Will Brown, the former UAlbany head coach, about UVM?
Well, I do think, keys to these type of games are you can't turn the ball over. And Vermont, according to Synergy, is the number one team in the country in turnover percentage, meaning fewest.
So there you go. Gabe Neitzel is telling you Marquette is going to look to force turnovers. Their identity is forcing turnovers. Will Brown saying, I got the stats. UVM does not turn it over. They are very, very good at holding on to the ball. So one team is reliant on forcing them and one team doesn't commit them. I got to say, I'm going to trust UVM in this one more times than not. I trust Vermont to not give up the ball at the rate that Marquette wants them to. UVM played Arkansas last year. An Arkansas team, long, athletic, fast, out of the SEC, one of the most athletic conferences in the country, and UVM only committed 6 turnovers. If they only committed 6 turnovers last year in this round against Arkansas, I got to think they're going to be relatively diligent with the ball again on Friday. I don't expect Marquette to force UVM into 18 turnovers, into 21 turnovers, into 17 turnovers. I think if you're looking for a positive, Marquette's looking to turn you over, UVM doesn't turn it over, and I think they can maintain that trend going into Friday. I just think this is a veteran team with tournament experience and with guys who can handle the ball. I trust Dylan Penn to not turn it over. I trust Robin Duncan to not turn it over. Finn Sullivan, Deloney. I think this team has enough experience and enough seniority to not fall victim to that kind of defense or to a team that's built that way. That's a good thing. 802-585-3026. Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line is open. If you're asking me for what I heard that I didn't like, pretty simple. It was this one.
No, they'll come out and they'll put the pressure on, without a doubt. That's what makes Marquette, to me.
That's not the right clip. I'll just tell you what he said. Gabe Neitzel said that because Marquette is not overly big, they have a bunch of interchangeable parts. That scares the hell out of me. When you have a team full of interchangeable parts, that team then can switch every screen, can switch every dribble handoff, and you never get a chance to find and exploit mismatches, right? We saw Binghamton in the America East Conference do just that and give Vermont all kinds of problems. After the America East semifinal, John Becker said at the press conference, that's the hardest defense that we have to deal with, the team that switches everything. That's exactly what Marquette's going to do. And that's going to be a nightmare. If you're wondering how UVM can get blown out in this game, it's because of that. If UVM struggled against a Binghamton team that switched every screen, they're really going to struggle against a Marquette team that can do the same way. Because let's explain this. When you have a pick, your goal is to create a mismatch somewhere, right? Can we get a big guy on a guard? Can we get somebody who's not comfortable being out on the perimeter? Can we then create a situation where we have a big guy matched up on a point guard down low? You're trying to create mismatches. If everybody on Marquette kind of looks like you and they can all guard every position, you're kind of out of luck in doing that. And that's going to be a problem. Now, I said, take solace in the fact that Marquette doesn't have a lot of big guys. That's true. But if Marquette had a lot of big guys, you could create a mismatch somewhere. If everybody is between 6'3" and 6'8" and athletic and can guard everybody you have, that's a problem. Maybe this is Neitzel talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely, because they have so many interchangeable parts. What's amazing about this team is their ability to score points in the paint despite not really having a true center. Oso Ighodaro is a talented center. He's a great passer, second best passer on the team behind Tyler Kolek. But at 6'9", again, he's a little more undersized. He can still get to the rim, but they have guys who get crafty around the rim. You mentioned.
So he's talking about offense there, but it would apply to defense too, right? You got guys that are 6'9". Number one, that is still bigger than you, but if they're trusted to guard your point guards, you're going to be in trouble. And that's where I think UVM is going to have the biggest issue. And that's why I think UVM is going to have the biggest problem. That is disappointing to me to hear. Like, as a UVM fan who wants them to win, I'm disappointed to hear that Marquette can play the defense that John Becker has said is the defense we have the hardest time going against. Because I'm trying to think, all right, where are the advantages going to come from? And they're very, very difficult to find. It's the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. We are brought to you by Fecto Homes. And as I think more about this game, there is something that I just keep coming back to. If UVM is going to win, if UVM is going to keep it close and make Marquette sweat it out, Dylan Penn is going to have to go off. Dylan Penn is going to have to go off. He is going to have to lead this team offensively. If UVM wants to keep it close and get Marquette thinking, if they want to keep Marquette scrambling mentally out of sorts, and if they ultimately want to pull a St. Peter-style upset, Dylan Penn is going to be the guy that has to bring it home. And I'm thinking about it based on what we talked about with Will Brown yesterday, who asked us this question.
Do you have that dude? A guy that, when Marquette comes out and Shaka Smart is on the sideline in a defensive stance, sliding up and down the sideline, yelling and screaming at his team. Do you have a dude when they take you out of your offensive sets or actions that can make individual one-on-one plays, that can get the ball in the paint and force the defense to rotate?
To me, that answer is Dylan Penn and Dylan Penn only. Dylan Penn is that dude. If UVM has one, Dylan Penn is it. He is the one guy on this team who can truly get into the lane and create things. And that's what UVM is going to need. UVM has a lot of guys that can do a lot of great things, but they don't have a lot of get into the lane and create things guys. They have guys that are the beneficiaries of that. But if they want to win, Dylan Penn's going to have to be that guy. Bar none. Full stop. Because Dylan Penn, one, is athletic enough to go to the bucket himself, right? He can get a first step on an opponent, get by a guy, and go to the tin, right? So he can score himself. He's also crafty enough to score in a multitude of ways around the rim. He gets a first step. He goes all the way with the left. He gets a first step. He goes all the way with the right. He gets a first step. He spins back, jump hook left, jump hook right. He gets on the low block and does something. He is the guy who's capable of getting to the paint continuously and scoring for himself. And eventually, once he does that, he's going to draw help defense. And now it's no longer going to be one-on-one. It's going to be Dylan Penn one-on-one, him getting by somebody drawing a double team, somebody collapsing, and now, boom, he kicks to the corner, and there's Finn Sullivan for three. There he kicks to the corner, and there's Aaron Deloney for three. There he gets into the lane and kicks it back out to the top of the key, and there's Matt Veretto for three. That's what UVM is going to need. If they are going to score enough to win this game, Dylan Penn is going to have to be the architect of everything. Right? Finn Sullivan's an excellent player. He's not really a take you off the dribble and get to the lane guy and do it consistently. Robin Duncan is an excellent player. He's not that. Deloney is a guy that can do that. Don't think he can do it against Marquette. Deloney, I love when he goes to the hoop. He can get a step on guys. He's just small. I don't know that I see him going religiously to the bucket. Dylan Penn is the guy who can go to the bucket, who can score for himself, who can put the ball in his hands and create. And then once he does that, then there's an opportunity for all those other guys to do what they do, which is catch and shoot, which is now we got the defense roaming. And now when the defense is roaming, now Finn Sullivan gets a guy on his back, and now he goes to the bucket. Now Deloney gets a guy on his back, and now he goes to the bucket, and somebody else helps. And now Veretto's got an open three in the other corner. That's how UVM has to play this game, with Dylan Penn putting the team on his back. And look, I do think Dylan Penn is capable of delivering just that. I'm not stupid enough to sit here and tell you that UVM is going to win. I'm not. As a 15 seed, I am not dumb enough to tell you that. But I do believe Dylan Penn is capable of delivering that kind of performance. There is something about him where I just trust him in big moments and in big games. I do. Right? Dylan Penn was great down the stretch of the season. We talked a lot in the early going about how he wasn't living up to his expectations, and a lot of that was probably injury, and a lot of it was probably unfair. But as we started to get towards March and the intensity started to get ratcheted up, he was excellent. Most valuable player of the America East tournament, went for 20 or more in every game of the tournament. He got in double figures in each of the last 11 games of the season. He knew what was at stake, and he knew what he needed to do to help get this team to the finish line. And he was excellent. Finn Sullivan, 1,000% deserved player of the year. Dylan Penn, 1,000% deserved most outstanding player of the conference tournament. And if UVM is going to pull an upset, if they are going to make Marquette sweat it out, then they are going to need Dylan Penn to be the guy he has been for the last month and a half. That's it. Because we saw early in the year what this team looks like offensively when they don't have that guy. Right? Early in the year, Dylan Penn's injured and a little more timid, trying to figure out how he fits in. And what did we get? A lot of guys standing out on the perimeter, a lot of guys hoisting jump shots that weren't really good shots. You need a guy who can get into the paint and who can put a team on his back. And Dylan Penn is that guy. He is the guy that UVM has who can do it. Everybody else on UVM is a very good player, but they need to be the recipients of what Penn is doing. I fully believe that. And I think Penn is capable. He just seems to have a second level. He seems to have a focus. He seems to have a mindset that lends him to be really good in those kind of moments. He scored 27 against Cal State Fullerton when this team needed it early in the year. I don't know that he's going to get 27, but he's going to be able to, I think, do some things for himself. And I'm trying to get to a specific cut that we had from Dylan Penn from a while back here. Let's see. Yeah, here was Penn on Saturday after winning the America East Conference tournament.
Still kind of just speechless right now. You know, last year I won the tournament, and the next day I couldn't even really enjoy it the way I wanted to. And you know, I've kind of been thinking about this opportunity for a year just to, have an opportunity to get back to the tournament. So, right now I'm just blessed that I came here and blessed that we were able to, achieve one of my goals.
I've been thinking about it for a year. Think about that story. So often in life, you count down to something. So often in life, you look forward to something. So often in life, you put all your energy into something, and it either fails or it doesn't live up to your expectations. Dylan Penn is a great story that he had a goal, he stuck to a goal, and he found a way to achieve that goal, and he put all his focus into that. Look, if you can focus for a year on one target and make that target happen, then I trust that he can come out on Friday and deliver a good performance. He just seems like a guy who is built for it. I think Deloney's capable of going off. UVM has plenty of guys that are capable. And as we talked about yesterday with Coach Brennan, if you're in the game, 10 minutes into the first half, 10 minutes left in the half, then you can start to make Marquette sweat it out. As we talked to Will Brown, if you can get Marquette wondering why they can't put you away, you can create some doubt and uncertainty. And then that's when the magic of March kicks in. I think UVM has guys that can create some of their own magic or can be part of that magic. Dylan Penn is the guy that can create it. It is the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. I got to fill out my bracket today. Have not done it yet. I've just been too swamped with work and booking guests and all that to try to figure out, who I'm going to pick. So, I like Kansas. I like TCU as an upset team. I think they're a 5 seed. I like TCU. I like Arizona. No team from the West has won a title since 97, I think. or 95 maybe. Like no team from west of Texas or Kansas or something has won since 97. I like Arizona. Couple things real quick on the on UVM, by the way, and the America East Conference. Charles Pride, one of the best players at Bryant, he entered the transfer portal. Clarence Daniels, the best player at UNH, he entered the transfer portal. So as I start thinking about UVM in the future, life already getting easier for the Catamounts moving forward. It's another testament to how good this program is, that their guys want to stay and transfers want to come in here, whereas most of the time, transfers just want to leave the other places in the America East. One NFL note, I want to talk about the Patriots here in a bit at some point. Morgan Valley is going to join us in a couple of minutes as well. But one NFL note, Aaron Rodgers says he intends to play for the New York Jets. It requires a trade, though, from the Packers, and the two sides are working on compensation for that. So we don't have an answer yet on Aaron Rodgers, but he says he intends to play for the Jets, and he has told the Packers and the Jets that, and now it's just up to compensation. So kind of the latest there. Eagles are bringing back a couple members of their defense, still have lost a couple guys as well, and they plan to release Darius Slay, I think, which I saw. And maybe that was a rumor, but that just came across my feed, but it might have been a rumor. All right. By the way, Freddie Coleman, Tom Caron, I spoke to both of them today. Both those interviews available on the podcast channel already. Morgan Valley is going to join us here momentarily. She's a Vermont native. She won a couple national championships of her own as a player at the University of Connecticut. Now she is on the coaching staff at Uconn. The Husky women getting ready for the Catamount women on Saturday in the NCAA tournament. How does she feel about going against her old stomping grounds and her hometown team? Morgan Valley going to be with us momentarily here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie,